What is up? How are we doing? Welcome. It is Thursday. It is Super Bowl. It's not Super Bowl week. It's Pro Bowl week. But we've got the Super Bowl coming up next week. And Underdog has absolutely loaded up the lobbies with some big contests. Big game one has $500K, $5 entry. Ton of users. Going to be an interesting one. Going to be hard to not be completely duplicated. So we'll talk through some strategy elements. We'll talk through the dupes. All of that. Experimented with something new today. We can talk about that later. Okay. I'm excited for today because we'll definitely talk through some of the strategies, some of the elements regarding because the scoring is changing. It is super flex. There are kickers. So we can talk through all of those elements. In addition, I think it makes sense for us to kind of just can talk through some of the projections, the rankings, high-level strategy elements, answer any questions that you all have. I think that'll give us a pretty good show. All right, so for starters, I think. All right, so let's go over some of the first. I guess we'll start off with some of the structure stuff. I'll share my screen. We can pull up the Underdog so we can actually take a look at these contests. Okay. So we'll go to the NFL, and the big game is the one that I was talking about here. So we've got $500K, $5 entry fee. First place up top is $50K. Not fairly flat at the top, nothing too crazy. And then 113,000 entries with 28,000 caching. So I might actually had that there, but doing some math real quick. So about 25% will be caching here with a bin cache. But of course, we are going for those top prizes there. So we want to figure out how we can get unique here. What else do we have? So as you can see, it is a single game, obviously, just the one game. There are 4 spots that we'll be drafting. And it is, in this one at least, it is 4 rounds, 4 people drafting. So 16. You will see with the ADP, we start getting to a lot of those 15.2, 15.4, 15.6 ADPs. Those are the people who are not being drafted much. And kickers are involved here. I think one thing that's noteworthy as well is if you were trying to kind of create your own rankings, your own projections, got to be careful with where you're finding elsewhere for kickers because they're using a bit of a funky kicker scoring system. Usually we're used to the, 35 yarders, 3 points, 45 yarders, 4 points, and so forth. For theirs, it's going to be anything less than 50 yards is 3. Anything more is 4. Where we go? There is 4. So these are definitely going to be lower projections than what you're going to see from a traditional kicker. I think I was looking at doing ours and Butker at around 7, just below 7 points, and then Elliott right around 6 points. So Butker definitely a little tier above just because Chiefs are more likely to kind of kick the extra points, go for the field goals. We know how aggressive the Eagles are, especially trying to get those kind of penalties at the extra point to be able to get to that 1 yard, and Hertz just kind of walk his way in. So that is that. Why are they? Oh, and also scoring. Oh, shit. I just missed. Extra point missed is also minus 2 points. Did not know that. Okay. I don't know. What's the likelihood someone misses an extra point nowadays? Like 10, 15% with the longer. I think it's like 85% to make one. So 15% likelihood. On average, you're kicking maybe 2. So I don't know. That's still like a half a point in projected value to lose there. So maybe even dock the kickers even a tiny bit more there. Gosh, I'm glad. Let me make sure there's nothing else that I've missed here. I think everything else is pretty standard, except for, as I mentioned, receptions. Full PPR here. Normally, we are used to half PPR on Underdog. However, why do they make all these changes? It's because there are only 2 quarterbacks, and especially in this one, there are 4 teams drafting. So they wanted to try to find a way to make it fair so that all of the teams, even if you were missing out on getting one of those QBs, you weren't completely, hampered or screwed or anything hurt there. I've done some, mocking the simulations to see like, hey, what's the expected scores here if you're drafting first, fourth? Like, are you at a major disadvantage if you're drafting fourth? And overall, I don't think so. I was looking, obviously depends on what projections you're considering. What at the who you're actually drafting, what that looks like from kind of, your picks and such. But in general, I kind of just said like, okay, 1, 8, 9, 16, 2, 7, 10, 15. I'm not going to keep going. I'll mess one of them up. But in general, the points were pretty similar. I think the range is around like 3 to 5 projected points between the best and the worst team. And that even doesn't go directly across ADP. So in general, like, you're not at a major disadvantage if you are kind of later on in the draft. So that's not something I'd be too concerned about. As for overall kind of other strategy elements before we get into the uniqueness, I'd say correlation. So I think there's probably some conversation around like, hey, should I not correlate? Because maybe that's a way to get unique. Like, is everyone going to correlate? Like, obviously, if you end up with Kelsey or Hertz early on, are you just going to be going heavy on there? I'd say in general, I'm still leaning towards the correlation aspect. I still do want to correlate all else equal because there are enough people that are probably in these that are not correlating that you're not really gaining substantial uniqueness by not. But again, it is a 1-game sample size. Anything can happen in that one game. So just like in showdown contests, we want, in general, there's, value to making sure your lineups make sense. But then there's also the, how many people are going to be drafting both Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell? How many people will be drafting both Pacheco and McKinnon? In theory, like, that doesn't make sense. Usually 2 running backs in the same team, like, inversely correlate. However, maybe that's one way to actually think, hey, I have a chance to get unique here. And so again, 113,000 entrants. Divide that by 4, you're looking at like 28,000 drafts that are happening. So 28,000 pods. Obviously, it's important to get unique. Most likely, I think whatever wins this is going to end up be splitting. And if it is splitting, it's probably splitting by with a lot of people. However, there is value to if we can find ways to get a unique lineup so that either we maybe get that solo win, or if it's not a solo win, you're at least chopping with fewer people. So 2 running backs from the same team, I think that's one that I'll start off with. I think that is something that people do not feel comfortable doing, but it actually makes sense here. There's 3 benefits to going with a 2 running back situation. 1, just the general, hey, not people are doing it's unique. 2, if you're going 2 running backs on one team, it means you're likely not getting the pass catchers or the QB on that same team. So now not only are you saying, hey, I'm taking the touchdowns with these 2 running backs, you're also getting leverage off of the other teams that have the QB stack. If these rushes come to the ground. And then the third thing I would say is specific to Philly. We have seen that someone like Kenneth Gainwell gets his most usage when the team is up substantially. So if this ends up being a bit of a blowout, if Philly gets up early, Miles Sanders gets those 2 touchdowns like he did last week, and then that's when they often bring in Kenneth Gainwell. So in that scenario, Kenneth Gainwell's success is directly correlated with Miles Sanders potentially having that success early on because they scored and they got up. And then also keep in mind, okay, if I'm going with the Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, I probably don't want to have Mahomes. I probably don't want to have too many Chiefs. Maybe I actually want to have someone like Jake Elliott where there's positive correlation with your kicker more likely kicking extra points, kicking field goals, kicking extra points as your team is ahead. And so thinking through that type of correlation aspects. Okay, other ways to get unique. ADP value. This is kind of a simple one, but because ADP is back, we were missing it last week, as you consider like, hey, I'm getting somehow crazily, I'm just going to use the most extreme example, you're able to get both QBs. Obviously, that rarely ever happens, maybe never, because they're going 1-2 in almost every draft. But if by some crazy chance you get to 4 and both QBs are there, yes, go grab those 2 QBs because you know you're getting uniqueness at the based off just knowing ADP. There's other examples of that you would see through the draft. They're not as extreme, but I think there is still, if you see someone with an ADP of 6 who's available in the 3rd round, you probably can draft him and get a unique combo of players that not many other people are getting. I think outliers. So with the ADP, we talked about, let's pull up here. We can go to the rankings. We'll look at the rankings and we can see, okay. So if we take a look at this Mecole Hardman, we start getting to the 15s, the 15-4, 15-4, 15-5, 15-8 and such. These are obviously the ones that are just not getting drafted in every draft. So same strategy that we have with normal battle royales, where it makes sense in each draft. If you're not getting unique by your structure, if you're not getting unique by some kind of crazy ADP value, then it probably makes sense to draft someone that is not being drafted often to get that level of uniqueness. And obviously, these are the ones that we want to be targeting. I think because this is such an extreme 1-game sample size, 1 game, so much duplication of teams and ownership, and 113,000 teams in this, there also makes more sense to kind of take a chance and go with 2 of the outliers, because amongst that 28,000 teams, whatever it is, like there's a lot of teams, even if only 5% of those 113,000 teams. Even if only 1% of those decide, hey, I'm going to go with that outlier strategy, 1% is still 1,300 teams. And so that's still a ton of teams that, yes, it's not going to have the same structure as you, but like those players are still going to be drafted with 1%. I think more likely we're probably seeing something around like 10 to 20% of teams are actually trying to grab one of those outliers. Then of those 10 to 20%, maybe there's 7 that are kind of being drafted as those low ones. So you still have the kind of overlap. So if you want to consider, maybe I'm going to grab 2 of them. Maybe my last 2 picks, I'm going to be going with both Sky Moore and Boston Scott, because usually, these guys don't get drafted. And when they do get drafted, usually it's just a one-off. So going for that kind of 2 14 plus, 2 15 plus ADP players, you can get unique. And the last one I'll touch on is going with the 0 top 6 players. If you draft a decent amount of these, you'll notice that in just about every single draft, Hurts, Mahomes, Kelsey are going to be going in the first at least 5 or so picks. And you then throw like A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. However, there's a chance that it's a wonky game and things bust. And so if you wanted to draft a team that says, you know what, I'm not going to go for any of these first 6 players, I'm going to start off by going Pacheco, McKinnon, and then maybe with your next one, you get Gainwell and Jake Elliott. Like, is there a world where KC only scores on the ground with Pacheco, McKinnon? On the AFC side, Gainwell has a strong game and Elliott puts up a lot of points. Like, of course, that's very possible. And I'm guessing that team has not been drafted at all this entire tournament, because it's so uncomfortable to say, no, I'm not going to take any of these best players available because they're such just better players. Like, so that's another way you can consider, okay, yes, I'm giving up project points. Yes, it doesn't feel right, but it's a really good way to potentially get unique. Okay. I'll pause there. I see a question in here I can answer, and then we can jump in some drafts. Okay. So Keola asking, hey, Justin, we can talk a little about the playoff best ball too and all of those advancing. So Keola asking, my roster made the finals for the mint returns again. Looking at the rosters they're playing against, if they have QBs like Burrows, etc., are those rosters dead already? For the returns one, 100%. 0 chance of winning if you don't have at least 5 players right now. For any of the mitten returns, the gauntlet returns, I'm seeing teams that have 10 players, 9, 8, definitely 7, 6s, and 5s, because there was no downside to drafting Eagles and Chiefs. There was no bye for them because it started in the divisional round. So for those, if you don't have a QB, if you don't have a full team, you're completely dead. If you only have 5 players, like you're a big long shot, because a lot of people probably also have those same 5 players and another 1 or 2. So you got to really hit the absolute nuts if you just have 5. Now, if we're talking about the mittens and the gauntlets from before the playoffs started, so not the returns, if you don't have a QB, are you dead? Not a guarantee, but most likely. I think we're seeing that on average for like the gauntlet, like you're seeing single digit number of teams that have 5 full players. In the mittens, maybe it's a little higher because, you could have, needed 2 out of 6 to advance in that first round. But in general, like if you have 4 between Philly and KC, for the gauntlets, for the mittens, you're looking really good. And so it's also not like I've seen some that I'd rather have the 4 players that someone has than the 5, because there's a lot of peripheral players on the Kansas City and Philly that may or may not play, may or may not put up points. So I wouldn't say anyone is completely out of it if you don't have a QB, if you're missing a position for those full playoff best ball ones. But for the mittens, yeah, you need to have a full team. Here, I can actually, I'll show my team. No, should be. I am so not good at using the desktop version. All right, so gauntlet returns. Here's my team that I'm looking at. So I've got Mahomes at QB. I've got Pacheco, Miles Sanders, Rashad White throwaway. Didn't even make it to the playoff. Didn't even make it to this round. You can tell I drafted this before the Tampa-Dallas game. Yeah, I lost a player there, but it allowed me to get a Mahomes Kelsey stack, which is extremely rare, even to still be alive right now. So no Rashad White, no Richie James, but yeah, so I'm sitting with Mahomes, Pacheco and Sanders, Travis Kelsey, Kadarius Toney, MVS, Mecole Hardman, and Dallas Goedert. There are definitely teams that have more players than I do still alive, but I have seen very, very few that have the Mahomes Kelsey. So if that stack ends up going off, fingers crossed, I'm hoping I've got a chance. I believe Underdog in their Discord, we're going to be publishing the ownership data, advanced rates and stuff for these players for the playoff best ball. I haven't seen that yet, but I'd be interested. I believe we can quickly just pop through, but it looks like there's a lot more Jalen Hurts than Mahomes. So like Hurts, Burrow, Daniel Jones. There's a Mahomes, but no Kelsey. Burrow, Dak, Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, but no Kelsey. Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts. So this is what I'm saying. Like there's a ton of dead teams that don't have a QB. Then you have a lot of Jalen Hurts teams. And you really do not have many Mahomes to begin with, and very, very few Mahomes Kelsey's one. So that's what I'm leaning on. I'm hoping I can take it down. First prize in this tournament is $75K. Would not be a bad way to end the season. Okay, let's jump into draft now. Big game. Let's have some fun. Come join us. I'll give a 30 second or 15 seconds. So if anyone wants to join, we'll have that delay to go through. So maybe you can join us as well. Sammy, I see you. Can't believe I made it to the finals. Made it to the final. Don't have many players. I know that happens to a lot of people, but hey, still better to bet that to get that cash. I'm still tilting a little for the Gauntlet 2. I had a team that had, I think it was 3 Eagles with 1 Chief, and it was less than a point from advancing, so just missed out there. And when I've looked at what's available, what do most of the Gauntlet 2 teams look like from what I've seen on Twitter and stuff, there are not many that have 4 pieces, 5 pieces. So that would have been strong. But oh well, missed out by a point. Okay. Definitely such a different feel with no positions or anything like that. So we'll try to leverage some of the strategies that we talked on. I do not have any rankings or anything adjusted here. Was working with Leone right before this to kind of get the updated rankings for this slate on the site. I don't know if they're there just yet, but I would guess that he'll get them up in the next kind of this afternoon, this evening. Yep, they're not quite there yet, but hopefully soon. That said, okay, so we do have Jalen Hurts number 1. He's about a point projected more than Mahomes, so that aligns with the ADP. I think for this, we'll do a traditional one to start off, see what it, just to get a kind of feel. Maybe we'll do a second one after this, and maybe that's where we get a little wonky, a little crazy. Okay, who do we have? There's Wild Koala. Got Coach Breezy. We got Greg DM. Hi, Kelsey goes there. You know, if you guys want to let Mahomes fall all the way back to me, I'm sure the draft will probably get canceled for collusion. But there you go. Okay, so we have Hurts, and yeah, we're going to be filling out 3 more spots. I think there's no clear rules that you want to completely rule out because of correlation or anything like that right now, like this early. Like in general, you could be like, I have Hurts, I don't want to grab Harris and Butker, etc. But I think like in a 1-game sample size, there's just so much wonkiness that we kind of just, hey, keep an open mind and more so just think of, okay, as this draft goes, how can I find ways to get unique without obviously dumping the complete lineup? And thinking where there might be a little correlation. So we got Hurts. If Goddard falls to us, okay, Goddard goes there. Okay. Let's go with a story of it is just going to be an absolute Eagles onslaught on the ground. So we're going to go Gainwell. And we're going to go Jake Elliott here. Now, the fact that we skipped out on a lot of these middle ones, I think maybe adds a little uniqueness to ours. If Goddard would have fallen to us, that's probably the most common Hurts stack. So not getting that is perfectly fine. If AJ Brown and Devonta Smith fall, I think that's some strong value, and that's where you definitely want to stack up the Hurts aspect, because if you look at their ADPs, they're pretty, ADP's 4 or 5. They're almost always going right there. If you're somehow able to get that one of those 2 stacks, definitely go for it. And now for our last one. So opportunities here, we could consider a Boston Scott and hey, maybe this, Miles Sanders actually got hurt in this game. You could go with the Harrison Butker. It doesn't really fit with, hey, this is a Philly onslaught and Philly scoring a ton of points. You could go with the Quez Watkins and just saying hey, there wasn't much in the air, but Hurts had 1 to Quez Watkins. Or we could go with someone like Juju just as a one-off here. I think Juju probably makes the most sense. If he does play, his projection is just substantially stronger than any of the others. We still have a pretty unique, I think, team and what we're building from a roster construction. And Juju PPR could still get points without you needing Mahomes or anything like that. And with that, if Juju ends up not playing in the Super Bowl, we'll have that swap option. And in the case that Juju doesn't play, there might be another pass catcher that is active that maybe we can get at very low ownership. All right, let's jump in one more. Same thing. See if we can get, these are so quick. So easy to enter. I think I'll probably be spreading out my exposure throughout this week and next and just kind of playing them as I get some time. I don't expect ADPs to change that drastically other than with the Kansas City wide receivers as we get more information on health. So as that happens, I think hey, it may actually be a better time now to kind of be taking those chances on some of the late Kansas City wide receivers because if they are healthy, Yeah, I see that. Andy was saying that Mecole was doubtful. They have Mecole as doubtful on here. A note there is be careful with drafting him. Yeah, so Reed saying unlikely eligible. If you draft a doubtful player and a player does not play, you are not able to swap. So I would not be drafting any Hardman with that news and with the doubtful tag, because that's just too high risk of a 0. If we find out that he actually is on the right side of it later on next week, we can then get some exposure there, and it's not going to be any different. So do not be drafting any Hardman, and I'll make sure that we do not have him in the rankings either, because initially when he was questionable, I liked having the potential. But yeah. Okay, so we get Hurts, we get Kelsey. Let's grab Mahomes. I was thinking if we wanted to get, unique with some structure over there. Let's just go with Mahomes, and we'll kind of play it out. So we'll have a Hurts team and a Mahomes team that we've done on stream. Okay, stack partners. Hardman out. Kelsey's already drafted. Juju we can get later, but we still like him. MVS obviously had the big game there. I think we'll grab Devonta Smith just from getting some early strong start. Devonta Smith, we like the projections and such. And now, because this is a bit of a chalky start, we'll probably want to make sure we have at least one-off kind of unique player, if not two, with the rest. Let's think through. I wouldn't hate if we wanted to go like Juju and Sky Moore, Juju and Tony. Juju and Tony isn't horrible. We're getting kind of the we get two questionable guys where if one doesn't play, we can then grab obviously the uniqueness later on in the draft. Let's do that. Grab Juju. We'll grab Tony if he is available. If he's not available, we can go with someone like Sky Moore is not bad either. Justin Watson, what's his situation? Healthy to start Super Bowl prep. That's good at least. Obviously has not had much involvement. I think Justin Watson's one of those ones where we potentially do the swap to from a Kadarius or a Juju if we need to later on. But if we have Juju healthy, if we have Kadarius healthy, who knows if Kadarius can finish the game. But then Watson's role is probably not as substantial. Okay. All right. I'm seeing some more comments about Juju, Tony. Yeah, we're going to continue to monitor these. Hey, it is a Super Bowl. We saw Mahomes literally played last week on whatever that ankle situation was. I think if they're anywhere close, we're going to be able to get them out there. Hearing that Mecole is not able to play this early, a week out, is really not great news. But I think also with Mecole, it's been interesting. He was supposed to come back in either week 17 or week 18, re-aggravated at that point. Then finally was able to come back last week, but re-aggravated again. So that's not just a one-off kind of, this has definitely been a lingering issue, and I'm sure they have a better feel of what's happening there. But with Juju, with Tony, I think they'll both play. I think there's enough time. But we'll see. We're going to take advantage of those Q tags. Okay. Yeah, little quick half-hour show. Obviously, the drafts were a lot faster here. I will be back next week, and we'll be doing some more of these. My guess is that, I think 113,000. Still so many people I think will be able to enter those next week as well. There's 25, there's 10, 5, there's the higher stakes Hail Mary 100. A lot of fun ones here. We'll keep an eye on it throughout this week and next. For everyone else out there, thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Have a good weekend. If you're enjoying the Pro Bowl, if you are just going to actually go outside and touch some grass or snow where you are, because the first weekend without real football, I know my wife is happy. All right. Cheers. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks everyone for joining. And I will see you on Twitter. I will see you all next week. Later.